edition of our program. We welcome you to yet another edition of our monthly program, the UNILOMGA lecture series. And this is the 15th of its kind. Alhamdulillah, we started this year with Alhamdulillah, and we are ending with Alhamdulillah. We ask Allah to bless all our efforts. The knowledge we've acquired, we ask Allah to make it beneficial for us. We ask Him to keep our feet firm on the path of Al-Islam, because the greatest loss that can happen to man is for them to lose Islam. We ask Allah never to test us with kufru after we have believed in Him. Jazakumullah khairan for all your support, for your recommendations, for your attendance, for your advice. Inshallah, we hope to continue next year to continue dishing out these educative, informative, and soul-inspiring lecturers. So we want to start on the note of appreciation. We equally want to thank the lecturer for finding out time out of his very busy schedule to be here with us today. Is somebody that a lot of us may know, and then I will be introducing him very shortly. The topic of discussion today is one that is very important, one that concerns everyone, every Muslim, Christians, non-Muslims. In fact, it is now of particular concern to the world. The security situation in Nigeria is one that affects people across board. And it is no longer news that Nigeria is facing an unprecedented security and humanitarian crisis that is driven by armed conflict, insurgency, banditry, terrorism, especially in the northern region of Nigeria. These armed groups who are causing a lot of terror, carrying out killings, mass kidnappings, sexual violence, and raids on communities and military bases have painted Nigeria in a very bad light. Have thrown the country into turmoil. It has particularly named Muslims a bad name because almost everybody believes that the people behind these insurgencies are Muslims. So we need to keep addressing this issue to let the world know that no, Islam is not about terrorism. Islam is a religion of peace. And in fact, Islam has a solution to all problems, including the one that we have been tackling since 2008, 2009. So as Muslims, we believe that Islam has a solution to all problems, including societal problems. Particularly, one of the core intents, the core intents of the Sharia, which is popularly known as Maqasid Sharia, is that Islam wants to secure our lives. Islam wants to secure our religion, our intellect, our property, our lineage, making this topic a strategic one. And what is the topic we want to look at today? Is the Sharia perspective on addressing insurgency and insecurity in Nigeria. So to this end, we have invited a competent speaker to discuss this topic. So we enjoin you to stay with us until the end of the program, take notes, engage in the discussions when it's time to, contribute or maybe ask questions, and then most importantly, take away the lessons. So may Allah make this easy for each and every one of us. To do this for us, we have invited Barrister Idris Ibrahim Alao, who is an Islamic legal scholar, a lecturer, an imam, and a community leader whose works bridges classical Islamic scholarship and contemporary legal education. Barrister Idris currently serves as a lecturer in the Department of Islamic Law, Fountain University, Oshogbo, Osun State. He is the first lawyer in Nigeria to author in the thematic area of Arabicization of Sharia and legal discourse in Nigeria. He holds a BA in Education in Islamic Studies Education from Lagos State University, LASU. He also holds an LLB in Islamic and Common Law, an LLM in Islamic Law, and he graduated with a distinction from the University of Ilorin. He also served as the Student Union President and was a prominent member of the Union of Campus Journalists. He was also an active member of the MSSN, University of Ilorin, particularly the editorial board. In addition to his academic qualifications, he's also, a certified teacher, a bilingual writer, author, and translator. All of these qualifications have enabled him to operate confidently at the intersection of law, language, and Islamic scholarship. Barrister Idris is the founder and chief operating officer of Ali Idrisi Hub for Studies and Translations, an initiative that is dedicated to the Arabo-Islamic education and creative industries. He is currently the chief imam and resident scholar stroke director of As-Salam Islamic Center, Ogbomoso, Oyo State, and holds the title of Sefirul Ulama, that is the ambassador of Islamic scholars of Ogbomoso land. He is a recipient of multiple scholarships, prizes, honors, and awards, including the 2025 award-winning coach, Spirit of the Moot Award of the Saudi Center for Commercial Arbitration, SCCA, International Arabic Moot Court competition held in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. These achievements highlight his remarkable impact in intellectual circles and contributions to religious activism. So join us as we welcome Barrister Idris Alao to take us on the topic, to discuss the topic, the Sharia perspectives in addressing insurgency and insecurity in Nigeria. فليتفضل مشكورا ومهجورا. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. أهلا وسهلا ومرحبا بكم يا شيخ.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. Could you please place your phone so we can see your face? Well, we are just seeing your cap. We can only see your cap.
Okay, I think it's fine.
It's getting better. It's getting better.
It's getting better.
Okay. Yes.
I think it should. What about like this? I think it should be okay like this.
Okay, let's not belabor you. Please continue. We can see part of your face.
Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa mawala. It gives me pleasure to be here at this particular moment to share my thoughts about the assigned topic. At the beginning, I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala assist us to uplift the mission and vision of our dear association, the University of Ilorin Muslim Graduate Association. It's an association that we have it as a point of duty on ourselves to promote, to do everything within our capacity to ensure that we continue to move from strength to strength. I also want to commend especially our dear brother, the General Secretary, Malam Hafiz Akinde, for his efforts in ensuring that we sustain this tradition. This is the 14th edition. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. I can imagine what it would take from him to continue to remind us and try to attract some of the speakers that we have listened to over the past edition. So may Allah reward him, and may Allah reward us all too for our participation monthly. Today's topic, because of our time, is about the Sharia perspective on insurgency and insecurity in Nigeria. Anytime that I'm being assigned a topic and the article D is in Sharia, it gives me some level of worry, because by the time we say the Sharia, it means that what is to be said, analyzed, or presented is stricto sensu the position of Sharia. While this may be correct to a large extent, inshallah, from what we are about to discuss today, it may not be correct in some other instance. It may be a Sharia perspective or Sharia perspective. But at a given in each particular context, one may need to also always make that distinction of whether the Sharia will be okay, a Sharia or just Sharia perspective. But because we will be discussing about something having to do with life, something having to do with our security and welfare, using the Sharia perspective may not be out of place, because we all agree that Islam is a religion of peace. Islam is a religion that promotes peace and ensure that peace is uh, at the top of its agenda. And there are many verses to illustrate that as we proceed. So there are keywords in the topic. We have Sharia perspective, we have Sharia, we have insurgency and insecurity. Nigeria is also a key word in it, but Nigeria is a country, and we all know that it is located in the West Africa sub-region, and it is the most populous black nation globally. So we limit our definition of key terms into Sharia, insurgency, and insecurity. When you say Sharia, the English, Sharia is an Arabic word, but the English representation of Sharia would be Islamic law. So it is right to say Sharia, it's like to say Islamic law. But we like to say Islamic Sharia. This is important to mention at the beginning, because we know some of us at times used to say Islamic Sharia is wrong. Sharia itself is law. So once you say Sharia, it is understood that the concept of law is embedded in that term Sharia. So Sharia, what is the definition of Sharia? There are many definitions offered by scholars from the classical time to contemporary times about what Sharia implies. But there's a very short definition that captures the whole essence of Sharia, and it summarizes what the Sharia is all about. And that is that Sharia is the will of Allah. The will of Allah is what is called Sharia. And if you look at it, virtually everything that we do, we are invariably putting into practice the will of Allah. Even on a daily basis that we observe our salawat, 16 rakat, 17 rakat, as our obligatory prayer. We keep reciting Surah Al-Fatiha. Again, we keep requesting from Allah, Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim. We are invariably seeking for Allah's will, asking for we're asking from Almighty Allah to facilitate for us the ability to implement His will in that prayer. Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim. So, insurgency is an organized, often violent rebellion or uprising by a group against its government or ruling authority, aiming to overthrow it using subversion and armed conflict, typically involving asymmetric warfare like guerrilla tactics rather than large conventional battles. When we say insurgency, we are talking about certain groups of militias who are coming together to fight a government, a duly constituted government in authority. Of course, as we proceed, we will mention some of the reasons that would warrant this or things that could cause this. But what we know essentially is that insurgents are militia groups. They are fighting to either unseat a government or calling the attention of government to address an act of injustice and or to address social inequalities and things like that. So, and when they do this, they do it through asymmetric warfare like guerrilla tactics, using ways that are not conventional to fight. For example, they may try to discover an open place, a crowded place, and try to cause bomb blast around the place, to detonate a bomb around the place. You know, when that happens, it will draw the attention of the whole country. In fact, it will draw the attention of the global media. So this is part of their tactics, so that attention will be drawn that something is going on, is going wrong somewhere, and the government will have reason to pay attention to what is happening around that particular place. You were all aware that just recently, I think 2 days ago, there was airstrike around a place in Sokoto as a result of the collaboration between Nigeria and United States of America to fight in Nigeria. Now, the place that was struck, it was identified as one of the places where these insurgents come. They use as their place of resort, where they gather, and so for that reason they try to attack them so that we can win the war against insurgency. However, I'm just using the US-Nigeria collaboration to illustrate the point that more often than not, when insurgents, when they cause terror, once they attack, they go back to their hidden enclave, maybe in the forest, like Sambisa forest, so that it will not be easy for you to capture them. But there is the consequence of what they have done would be out there, and it will create fear in the minds of people. You can imagine for years now, the Southwest region has been enjoying relative peace without experiencing anything like insurgency. But anytime that there's an attack by the insurgents in the northern Nigeria, the news spread fast and it creates fear in the minds of everybody. Let me just say this by way of trying to let you see what this has caused for us. I know people who are now who were born and brought up in Nigeria, pursued their education in Nigeria, but are now living outside the country. When they come to Nigeria again, the level of fear and sense of insecurity in them is so much that you'll be doubting your mind that is it not the same person that I have known for years, who was brought up in Lagos, in Ibadan, in Ilorin, in different parts of Nigeria, in Abuja. Because the consequence of the terrorist attacks and insurgent attack has created fear in the mind of everybody globally. So this is what insurgents intend to achieve, so that it will now get to a point that the government will now start inviting them. They may ask them that they should sheathe their swords, they should stop attacking, and invite them to a negotiation table. As we proceed, we will get to that point. Insecurity is the state of being open to danger or threats where one lacks protection. That is what insecurity means a prisoner. You want to leave your present location. For instance, you may be in Lagos and you want to travel by road to Abuja. Then you start to get worried because you don't know what may happen to you on the way. As I speak to you now, many people are now flying from Lagos to Abuja, and that has created, because a lot of people do not want to go by road again, and that's created another increase in the number of people that are flying through that route. So that is what insecurity is all about. A situation where you are not free to move around, even though you have freedom of movement guaranteed by the nation's constitution, as evident from the 1999 Nigerian constitution, but you are not free to move around. We are not even talking of night hours. We are even talking of day hours, to a point now that it has been said even by security officials that if you are applying a road for a certain number of minutes, for example, you are applying the road for 30 good minutes and you couldn't find any vehicle coming, either approaching you or coming from your back, then you should know that something is wrong. It's advisable you turn and go back. It's as bad as that. Now, we are interested in the Sharia perspective because there are many perspectives with which we can look at the issue. The issue can be looked at from the perspective of politics, economy, even from the perspective of psychology, the mental state of people, and so many aspects of knowledge can actually be presented as far as insurgency and security is concerned. But we are limiting ourselves to Sharia perspective because we are Muslims. Then again, the guest speaker, this is like the fault of the guest speaker. So my fault is not economics, even though in our studies we have things to do with economics because Islamic law touches every aspect of human life. We may have reason to discuss about military and even psychology, education, and whatnot, because Islam is a whole, is a comprehensive religion. For the Islamic perspective, there should be Islamic or Sharia perspective. There should be one clear perspective, and that is whether we are looking at it from a classical, contemporary perspective. We should arrive at the same point, even if it is orthodox, which is also similar to classical. Contemporary, we should have the same conclusion. I'm saying this because people in the West now have the habit of saying, when you say something is Islamic, you start hearing that this is orthodox, this is mainstream Islamic perspective, and this is radical ideology perspective. Sometimes they tell you Sunni Islam, Shia Islam, as if Islam is divided into two. There's Sunni Islam and there's Shia Islam. And these are just historical occurrences. The emergence of Shia was a matter of history. Islam remained Islam, and Islam cannot be divided into Sunni Islam or Shia Islam. The Islam of the Prophet ﷺ is Islam that we are doing, and it is the same Islam that embraces the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. So anything contrary to that may have some level of guidance in them, but it is a dangerous path to do that path, to follow that line. For example, Shia, they are also praying as we are praying, they are fasting as we are fasting, but you can imagine the creedal belief, the creedal system of the Shia, and that will not make it to be a valid Islam or Islam that Muhammad Sallallahu brought to us from Allah. Now, from the Sharia perspective, strictly sensu, we have to look at this issue from the background of sanctity of life. The premium that Islam places on our life is so important. Our life is so precious, so much so that in Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse 32, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Allah was discussing about the issue of taking life. I think the case of Abil and Qabil was the matter preceding this particular verse. Allah says, من أجل ذلك كتبنا على بني إسرائيل أنه من قتل نفسا بغير نفس أو فساد في الأرض فكأنما قتل الناس جميعا ومن أحياها فكأنما أحيا الناس جميعا. We decreed upon the children of Israel that whoever kills a soul, unless for a soul or for corruption done in the land, it is as he had slain mankind entirely. وَمَنْ أَحْيَاهَا, and whoever saves one soul, it's as though he has saved the entire mankind. Yes, it will be so, because don't forget, in the beginning of Surah An-Nisa, fear your Lord that has created you from one soul, and that single soul is Adam alayhi salatu wasalam. So from Adam, we are now we have multiplied, in fact, a manifold, abundantly, into billions into this world. So with one soul, we can achieve having the whole mankind, as is the case with Adam. And the same thing is what Hafiz Ibrahim said in his poem, Al-Ummu Madrasatun Idha Ataha Adatta Sha'ban Tayyib al-Araq. A mother, he was talking about women. A mother is like, if you train if you train your own female child very well, it's like you have trained a nation. Because from one woman, if you have a righteous wife and Allah bless you with righteous children, and they continue to produce righteous children, invariably one day you are going to have your community as righteous community. So it's also similar to what Allah is saying here. So again, I'm happy at the point, at the level of introduction, our General Secretary mentioned to us that there's something called Maqasid Sharia, the higher intent of the Sharia, that everything in the Sharia we can conveniently trace them into one, two, or three of these objectives or intent. And the first is Hifdud, protection of the religion. As precious as our life is, Allah decree jihad. Of course, I'm going to talk about what jihad implies, because it's one of the instruments, the tool being used to perpetuate the act of insurgence, by the insurgents. So they try to manipulate some textual authorities relating to jihad in order to further their illicit objective. But the point we want to emphasize here is to let us know that as precious as our life is, there's one objective that because of that objective, we may even sacrifice our own life, and that is Hifdud, protection of the religion. So, and that's why Allah in many verses encourage us, Jahidu fillahi haqqa jihadi, strive in the path of Allah in the real sense of it. In some other place, Jahidu fillahi bi amwalikum wa anfusikum. Strive in the path of Allah bi amwalikum, with your wealth, wa anfusikum, and your lives. But then again, we'll come back to that. But the emphasis is here is about Maqasid, is that Maqasid essentially is 5. Of course, we understand that it can be classified as 6, as because the 6th one about honor was added by Imam al-Qarafi al-Maliki. Imam al-Qarafi of the Maliki school was the one who added the 6th one, but it has gained wider acceptance, so it goes to no issue to emphasize that it is basically 5, whether 5 or whether 6. Those are issues of technical nature for those of us who are in that field. But essentially, these 6 Maqasid are meant to let us understand and appreciate that they are objective behind all the laws of Islam. So the second objective is Hifdud an-Nafs, protection of our life. So it is very wrong to kill a soul indiscriminately, and this is exactly what the insurgents do. They kill people in open place, in crowded place, in the market, in places of worship. You would notice that insurgents really are, they except for the cases of kidnapping, which is also a form of insecurity matter. With the exception of the case of kidnapping, when people kidnap people who are going on their way traveling, you will notice that insurgents attack crowded places, mosques, churches, gathering schools. When they want to go and kidnap, they'll go to schools where you are having huge number of students and try to capture them and take them away. So anybody doing this is doing the act of facade. One of the meaning of facade is deliberate causing of fitna, corruption in the land. Allah says, al-fasad fil barri wal bahr bima kasabat aydi an-nas liyuziqahum ba'da ma 'amilu wa la'allahum yarji'un. Corruption has spread through the land and the sea. Bima kasabat aydi an-nas, because of what the hands of human beings had caused. So by the time we have caused all the corruption, Allah will now say, liyuziqahum ba'da ma 'amilu. We are also going to have the taste of what we have caused for ourselves. And that is what is happening today. Well, maybe we are going to have reason to retrace our steps. In today's Nigeria, we are all bearing the consequence of the insecurity in the land. No matter who you are, you have relatives, even if you are a government, you are a governor, you are enjoying security protection. What about those people who are in your family, both the nuclear and the extended? In a situation where the convoy of a former president of this nation, Muhammad Buhari, was attacked. So this is to show to us that nobody can be too sure, can just sleep with two eyes closed, that nothing, no evil can befall him. So we are having a taste of what actually some of us had actually caused. And this is part of the Sunnah of Allah. It's part of the Sunnah of Allah on the earth. Whatever fitnatan, all of you, be careful of a particular crisis, calamity. La tusibanna alladhina zalamu minkum khassan. When it happens, it will not encompasses only those who are guilty of it. Don't you know the numbers of sincere devotees of Allah who are Muslims have been killed because of facing facing this insecurity as a nation? You do know the number of imams that have been killed, and innocent people, including pregnant photos in the womb of their mother, photos in the wombs of their mothers. So the issue of life is very sacred. So on that basis, it is not welcome Islamically to kill disproportionately or indiscriminately. It's not welcome. Another reason for this that may also count as one of the one will have, this may be called the textual. I'm trying to trace some of these points to textual basis, is another point known as social justice and governance. Islam calls us to the concept of al-adl ijtimai. We should be fair in dealing with people, so that it will not lead people into some of these illicit acts. Social justice and governance. And that is why in Islamic law of governance, as Sharia, there is a principle called قاعدة التصرف على الرعية منوط بالمصلحة. التصرف على الرعية منوط بالمصلحة. All the acts of a leader in who is in a position of authority must revolve around the great interest of the people. Whoever is appointed in a position of authority must know that he must pursue the interest of the people that is going to bring about benefit and ward off evil from them. These that have been said, relying on one of the qawaid in Asiyasa Sharia, is not strange to contemporary secular governance. In the Nigerian Constitution, Section 14, you will find it there that the security and welfare of the people is the primary purpose of government. And that is why when there is security of this proportion, it may constitute an indice to claim that a government or a nation is failing. And that's the case of Nigeria. We are now at the mercy of world powers. We are at the mercy of world powers. You had it in the news some weeks ago that the US government is trying to come into Nigeria, claiming that there's Christian genocide, because it is being, of course, that's a propaganda anyway. But our situation now is that globally we are being noticed, we are being penciled down for issues of insecurity, corruption, and insurgency and the like. Meanwhile, Islamically, what we have learned, because they are Muslims, or among the insurgents, there are people who claim to be Muslims. Of course, Islam did not send them to perpetuate acts of insurgency. Among those who are in authority, this is where it leads to us. They are Muslims. We have had Muslim presidents from 1999, at least up to 3 times now, till date. We had Yaradua, we had Buhari, and now we are having Tinubu. These are Muslims. We have had Muslims heading government arms, heading government agencies, heading the security architecture of this nation. So it would be wrong to claim that We are not also responsible one way or the other. But we are emphasizing here that Islamic precepts in matters relating to leadership is that you fight and go for the interest of the people whenever you are the aim of our faith. If our leaders, the Muslims and non-Muslims alike, have not politicized issues, we probably will not be where we are today. The third point relating to the Islamic or Sharia perspective that I'm trying to let us know some basics that are foundational basis for this particular topic is preservation of the society. Islam places a strong emphasis on maintaining a stable and secure society, and that is why when Allah raised Shu'aib to Madian, وَإِلَى مَدْيَنَ أَخَاهُمْ شُعَيْبًا, when we sent Shu'aib to Madian, Shu'aib was the prophet of Allah. قَالَ يَا قَوْمِ, so he called them, oh my people, اعبدوا الله, worship Allah. مَا لَكُمْ مِنْ إِلَٰهٍ غَيْرُهُ, you have no other Lord to worship, other than to worship except Him. قَدْ جَاءَتْكُمْ بَيِّنَةٌ مِنْ رَبِّكُمْ, heaviness has now come from Allah to you. فَأَوْفُوا الْكَيْلَ وَالْمِيزَانَ, ensure you provide good weights and balance for people. When you measure, good measurement, ensure you give people good weight. وَلَا تَبْخَسُوا النَّاسَ أَشْيَاءَهُمْ, do not deny people of their rights. Allah added it that وَلَا تُفْسِدُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ بَعْدَ إِصْلَاحِهَا, do not cause corruption on the land after it has been made peaceful, good, stable, secure. You remember that it was because of Fasad in this case, that was why the people of Noah were destroyed. So that was the first event where Allah had reason to destroy Mexico before all those who followed Noah in the ark. Now, humanity continued from there. All those who followed Noah, in the ark, humanity now continued from them to date. So any act of evil, any act of destruction is like perpetuating facade. And you have other instances where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us illustration. Inna Allah la yuhibbul fasad. Inna Allah la yuhibbul mufsidin. Allah doesn't like the causing of corruption. Allah doesn't like those who perpetuate corruption. Yes, Allah says, kullama aqad naran lil harbi atfa'a Allah. It is in the church of the people that we are always looking for way to cause fitna in the land. And the case point, of course, we are going to get here. Is how our politicians make use of a subject to gain political control, to gain political power. Many politicians have been figured as some of those who are responsible for the rise of insurgency in Nigeria, including the circumstances involving the emergence of President Muhammadu Buhari. Recently has become an issue people have to be discussing it in different forums. When especially related to how banditry now became another form of insecurity matter that you are the front. So these are just the foundational basis that emphasize the need for security and enjoin us to pursue this noble objective. Now we move to root causes of insecurity. There is the radical Islamic ideology approach for the root cause, and there's also what I call non-Islamic causes of insecurity, a reactionary stance. So I'm going to take the first one, the root causes of insecurity, a radical Islamic ideology perspective. The first one is jihad was misconstrued to mean armed conflict. Before going to discuss this, I would enjoy all of us on the platform here today that as Muslims, let us endeavor to show more interest in learning about our deen. fine, we may be able to can read the Quran, we can read Arabic text, but the knowledge of Sharia is beyond the ability to read the Arabic text. Something as a matter you may think is very simple may not appear simple. You remember that about that something questions were put forward to Malik. Malik said that he was saying La Adili for the most of the questions. The questioner came from a far land. He told Malik that I've been asking series of questions. You are saying La Adili, La Adili. And Malik replied that Man qala La Adili, faqad after. Whoever tells you that he doesn't know, he has made a fatwa. You remember also that during the time of Umar had the habit of inviting Abdullah ibn Abbas in the midst of very, very senior companions who are elderly and who can even father Abdullah ibn Abbas. And Umar noticed that they are not always content with that. He wanted to show them and make them realize that, yes, I know what I'm doing. Then one day they were in the garden. Abdullah again asked Abdullah ibn Abbas to be there. And Abdullah at the time was a young chap. Then he told them, okay, who can tell us among you what was the sababun nuzul, cause of revelation, circumstance leading to the revelation of Surah An-Nasr? You see, look at, if I say Surah An-Nasr, all of you start reciting it. But some of you will also know the meaning. Just like what you want to think naturally to mean the meaning, that is about victory, triumph for the prophet. That's what many of the elderly companions were saying. Until Umar asked Abdullah ibn Abbas to tell them, and he was saying that it means the more to Rasulullah sallallahu that the chapter was revealed to indicate the nearness of the death of the Prophet sallallahu. And there's nothing relating to death in the entire chapter. So I can keep citing a whole lot of example. As simple as Surah Al-Fatiha is, I'm saying this wa ana ushidullah ala dhalik. I'm using Allah as witness. There are some meaning about Surah Al-Fatiha that I just discovered not more than 2 weeks ago about a particular verse in Surah Al-Fatiha. You can imagine. So I'm saying this because jihad was misinterpreted to mean a conflict. And of the many meanings of jihad, one meaning is qital. Many places where jihad was used in the Quran had another meaning. One of the many meanings of jihad is qital, in the sense of fighting our enemies in a defensive war, not even aggressive. Al-harbul al-hujumi ad-difa', what do you call it? Aggressive war, and defensive war. One is offensive. Offensive is either aggressive or offensive. That's hujumi, and the other was defensive. So we have the right to go for a defensive war if we are being attacked as Muslims. Yes, because we need to secure ourselves, we need to secure our land. We cannot open our eyes and allow people to come into our terrain, and this is also reckoned with in all constitutional governments across the globe, because there is territorial limitation for every country. So you need to ward off people coming to your land. And since Islam is a totality of human experience, it covers everything. Islam is a religion and also a government and also a legislative authority. So it's not just about worship. And that's why anytime I discuss jihad, I used to paint this picture to let people understand that when you start discussing jihad, you are discussing Islam as a government. Now, let me give a very close example so that you can understand it. In the Sharia, there's something called al-firaru yawm zahaf, running away from battle on the day of battle. It is kabiratu min al-kabair. It's a great sin. Do you know that the same thing is being legislated? It's not even being legislated. It's legislated in military law. It's called awol, absence without leave. And in military law, it's a grievous offense. It's a grievous offense in military law. So when we start discussing some of these things from the perspective of Islam, people would forget that we are discussing Islam as a government. They start saying that why will a religion legislate killing? Forgetting that there are limits to everything. Islam, there's a way we do in time of peace, there's a way we relate with other people in time of peace and in time of war. So the radical Islamic approach that actually gave impetus to insurgency and allow it to rise and grow is the idea that jihad in the Quran is about armed conflict. Look at the verse in the Quran where Allah says, "Faqatilu a'immatal kufr bi'annahu la aymana lahum." Kill the ranks of the kuffar. Now, that is talking about a situation where you have Islamic State. Again, on this issue of jihad, because I'm trying to respond to the radical Islamic ideology that gave impetus to the rise of insurgency. They interpreted all the verses on jihad in the Quran to mean we can fight people who are non-Muslim. We can fight anything that does not appear to be Islamic to us, which is not so. You may have been aware that Islam, when it comes to the issue of territory, is basically divided into two. Some did not know there is a third class category. They say Darul Islam, a territory of Islam, Darul Harb, a territory of disbelief. That particular categorization has been from the time of the Hanafiya. And the Hanafiya propounded the categorization of territory into two because the Romans, who led a civilization, had a way they categorized territory too. 40 years after the period that the Hanafiya categorized territory in Islam into Darul Islam, Abode of Islam, and Darul Kufru, Abode of Kufru, Imam Shafi'i came. He realized that no, the whole world we cannot continue to categorize the world into two. There should be a third category of Darul Ahad, the abode of covenant, where Muslims and non-Muslims are living together in peace. That ahad, that covenant in Nigeria and in every constitutional democracy today is the constitution. That constitution is what is the covenant between me as a Muslim and a non-Muslim in this nation. That we will live peacefully, we both have the right to life, we both have right to dignity, we will have right to freedom of expression, right to freedom of association, right to freedom of movement. You see the catalog of the rights in chapter 4 of the 1999 Constitution, which provides for fundamental rights. I'm saying this to draw attention to the fact that part of the problem that led into the rise of insurgents is the radical Islamic approach, which sees constitution as a kufru-based document. So the insurgent will not in any way reckon with anything constitution. You may have heard a particular song, a particular song sometimes ago that was everywhere, but it was you hear the outside lyrics in it. We want Quran as constitution. We want Quran as constitution, something like that. And I'm sure some of us can relate. So that song, fine, is good to say we want Quran as constitution. But again, in countries where they have tried to mainstream Islamic provision into textual documents, into textual legal documents, black and white documents, they do not make Quran as constitution. Saudi Arabia is a good example. The Saudi law is called Al-Hukm, we call the Saudi constitution is not called Ad-Dustur. They are not calling it Ad-Dustur Saudi, no. النظام الأساسي للحكم النظام الأساسي للحكم, basic laws of Saudi Arabia. There, you can download the English version. It was mentioned that both the Quran and Sunnah will be the guiding provision, guiding document for the constitution. So even if you want to make Quran as constitution, the Quran should remain as it is. While there is a document you call whether constitution or any other name, that must always be coming under the Quran and the Sunnah, not to make Quran and Sunnah simpliciter as a document to it. Because how would you present it in modern times? So in order to follow the codification style, there should be a document that will now be under the constitution, but the Quran will continue to remain as the and the Quran and Sunnah will continue to remain as the guiding philosophy for that constitution. These are issues that the insurgents do not understand. That in the modern world, there's a way we go about things. If you ask many people, if you are opportune to interact with the insurgents, for instance, okay, how do you want us to use the Sharia you are calling for in modern times? They do not have idea. And it is knowledge that can assist us to achieve this. A good point in this case is what is happening in the Asian communities. I've asked us to say this repeatedly, that the Asian communities are far advanced in representing the Islamic knowledge values in the modern form. Islamic banking and finance is a good example. Look at what Malaysia has become, a hub of Islamic finance globally. The halal industry is what is following suit now, because they try to present it in the modern form and make it implementable, applicable, so much so that it aligns with the modern way of life. And this is the way we should be advocating for the implementation of Sharia. Not to say we want Sharia and you, because we want Sharia, you want to, people who are non-Muslim, you just want to kill them. No. There's a hadith of Rasulullah who says that if you kill people who are Ahlul Dhimma, the Christians or Jews, there's a very tormenting punishment for that person on the day of judgment. Even the Fuqaha, Abu Hanifa hold the view that if a Muslim should kill a non-Muslim, if a non-Muslim should kill a Muslim. No, I want to get it right. Yeah, if a Muslim should kill a non-Muslim, that Muslim should kill it back in return. That's what Abu Hanifa. But many other Mazahib seem to favor that if a non-Muslim should kill a Muslim, that Muslim will not be killed back in return. If a non-Muslim should kill a Muslim, that Muslim will not be killed back in return. But Abu Hanifa said, no, that Muslim will be killed back because it is the same soul. Now, if you are not well exposed how you are going to present Islamic views, you are being invited to a radio program and you just presented a view. Even if the view is the view of the Jumhur, the majority. In a constitutional democracy, where the constitution is the binding law of the land, and we all agree to the provisions that it is the supreme law of the land, and that there is right to life is guaranteed. How can a scholar, an Islamic scholar, sustain the argument that if a Muslim should kill a non-Muslim, that Muslim will not be killed back in return? But of course, we have this sukuk in the opinion of Abu Hanifa, which can also be presented. You say, no, that view that you have mentioned is a view, though it's the majority, but there's a view of Abu Hanifa who says one soul is not different from the other. Of course, there are other textual authorities like the one I've mentioned, Insurgency and it's like the position of the Jumhur to claim that you can kill a non-Muslim and go scot-free. And this is part of what the radicalists have in mind, that if they kill non-Muslim, they can go scot-free. The second root cause of insecurity or insurgency, as it relates to radical Islamic ideology perspective, is opposition to anything Western. I've had reason to read through the material, a book authored by Dawah Institute of Nigeria. And on a number of occasions, I've been invited for some assignment or tasks related to some of their publications. I've had cause to review. I was one of the reviewers of the book published on jihad. So I'm in touch with some of their publications. The one, if you read the material on Boko Haram, opposition to Western education, you would commend Dawah Institute for the effort put in to publish that work. and you have an idea of what the orientation of the insurgents look like. Anything Western is to be rejected. It's not to be welcome. Because why? We are Muslims and we need to, that isn't the way it is done. أَوْرَدَ أَسَادٌ وَسَادٌ مُجْتَمِلٌ مَا هَكَذَا يَسَادُ تُورَدُ الْإِبِلُ. This is not how Islam is to be presented. I'm trying to reply to some of these root cause so that it will not only mean that I'm only mentioning some of these things without letting us know the position of Islam on them. A good place a good point, example to give to let us realize that our society today is not far from the society of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in what sense? In the sense of what are the consequences of that society. In Medina, the first Islamic state, there were Jews who lived in Medina with the Prophet. There were those who are not Jews who lived in Medina with the Prophet. And when the Prophet came, he felt the need that we need to agree on certain things. And an agreement was reached, which we know as Wahifatul Medina, the Medinan Charter, the Medinan Constitution. It was when the Jews violated what we have in the Constitution that led to their what? Al-Jalal. That's one of the, I think Surah Al-Hashr. Yes, they were expelled from the whole Arab land. There was a reason for it. It was because the Jews in Medina were treacherous. So some people present it as if the Prophet deliberately humiliated the Jews. No. Now, if today we are having non-Muslims living in our environment, it calls for us to go back into history and learn very well how we are to deal with non-Muslims, how we are to conduct ourselves, how we are to let them realize that though they may be non-Muslims, but there is a certain level of relationship expected from us. Just to give an example, you are all aware that it is in the Quran we read every time that a Muslim can marry Ahlul Kitab. It's not, you cannot remove it. It's another issue to say that, you see, can we go we can't advise one another to marry Ahlul Kitab because of some of the terrible consequences that we all know. But again, we cannot remove it. That is to tell us that Allah made us realize that you can't do without others. And insanu madani bi tabi. People in anthropology, they will tell you that, people in sociology, they will tell you that a man is by nature madani, civil. He's civil. He has to mix with people, deal with people. You cannot live in isolation of others. So there's nothing. Islam encourages us to pick knowledge from anywhere. Al-hikmatu dalatul mu'min. Knowledge is a lost property of a believer. Wherever he finds it, is more entitled to it. If knowledge is if knowledge were to be the sole property of a believer, then Islam will have prohibited us from seeking knowledge outside our own domain. The first verse of it says, "Ikra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaqa." First verse is, "Khalaqa al-insana min 'alaq. Ikra wa rabbuka al-akram alladhi 'allama bil qalam 'allama al-insana ma lam ya'lam." Read those verses again. You realize that the only condition attached to seeking knowledge is that the knowledge must be sought from the perspective of establishing that Allah is a Rabb. And Allah is generous. He can endow you with knowledge if you seek for it. And that when you have the knowledge, you should also be generous to share the knowledge. Those are the takeaways from these verses. So how then can we sustain the argument that we should reject anything Western, as if they are not human beings like you are? What even gives the insurgent the impression that those that they are rejecting their idea about, they are not even better Muslims than they are, because Islam is the fastest growing religion in the West. And we have seen from what we are seeing on the internet, many of them that are scholars, many of them that are Hafazatul Quran, many of them that they even understand Islam far better and try to practice it in real life, in the real sense, than some of us that we may have even been born and brought up in Islam. Now, the third root cause for the radical Islamic ideology perspective is exploitation of grievances. We need to be very frank with ourselves on this point that even the most cultured, the most mannered among us will also feel for this particular point that yes, we have a serious problem of issue of social inequalities, poor governance, corruption, political marginalization. And these problems continue to repeat themselves. They continue to repeat themselves from independence till today. Up to today, the Nigerian nation has not come to address the Igbo question. What is the position of the Igbo ethnic group in Nigeria? It is a question that is calling for answer, and that question refuses to die. If we want peace, all those issues that we know them that these are issues that we try to avoid, we need to come out open and discuss it, be sincere. Why the hostility against the use of Sharia for Muslims in their personal lives outside the northern region? Why the hostility against the establishment of Sharia courts in southwestern Nigeria, for instance? We need to come out and discuss some of this issue. Okay, the Igbos, what is your worry with the Nigerian government? We have only 5 states in our region. All other states, all other regions are having 6, except for Northwest that is having 7. Even though Central is having 6, but with FCT, that's 7. But it's only the Southeast that is having 5. Okay, if what we are going to do is to delineate the geographical mappings or territories, okay, let's make it 6 for peace to reign. Okay, what is another grievance we are having? We have seen, our grievance is that we have seen that there is a deliberate ostracization of the Igbos from the presidency. Okay, the Southerners should come together. When next we are producing a president, let's allow Igbo to be featured, even if it is as vice president. So, Muslims, what do you want? You want Sharia courts, government-funded Sharia courts. Is that what you want? Okay, we may not be able to appoint more than 3 judges because of the budget. But as time goes on, we may increase it. Okay, even with 3 judges, we are still okay. Established for them. But if you continue like this, that is why if you are a very good observer of events in Nigeria, you realize that since around 2002, 2003, that this issue of Niger Delta militant group came up. It's metamorphosed into MEND, Movement for Emancipation of Niger Delta. And after that, we started hearing the issue of Boko Haram. After Boko Haram, we started witnessing kidnapping. Again, now we are talking of banditry. And both Boko Haram, kidnapping, banditry has now remained with us. But there's no more the agitation from the Niger Delta region. Why? Because there was amnesty program designed for them. At some point, it was also called, they also designed amnesty for Boko Haram insurgents during the time of Muhammad Buhari. Amnesty was designed. So, as I'm going to illustrate towards the end of the lecture, you will see that the amnesty program being designed for insurgents is part of our problem. But again, we'll come back to there. So we'll come back to that point. The last point is on that I'm emphasizing now is exploitation of grievances. That we have so many issues of grievances that some people, because of their lack of education, may not want to bear with the pains, with the sufferings anymore. And the cheap way to go about it is that once they have been brainwashed, or what do you expect of somebody that is not in school, is not having Arabic Islamic education, is not refined morally, not skilled. So somebody somewhere will just indoctrinate them and put them together, give them food, give them clothing, give them shelter, and this continue. So by the time you get to a point when you give them instruction, go and kill, they will go and kill. And again, that is part of this the strategy being adopted by some religious groups in the north to convert Muslims. Especially the youth, they are living Islamic groups. They are going to other place of worship of other religion without anything being put in place to counter it from us as Muslims. Now, what are those non-Islamic causes of insecurity? A reactionary stance. We have number one, reprisal attacks. Reprisal attack is a counter attack from those people who are aggrieved supporters of affected victims. It's like when insurgents attack churches. You know, the first thing that an average Christian will pick from it is that, okay, these are Muslims attacking us, and they will go for a reprisal attack to attack a mosque. In abundance of that loss that they have suffered, so they in reaction to the loss that they have suffered, they are also going to attack Muslims. Another reason for this is for these non-Islamic causes. These are not, it has nothing to do with religion. It has nothing to do with religion. It's purely issue of reprisal. Even though we have used church and mosques as an example, but it may also happen at the level of ethnic community, like what is happening around the plateau axis. That one is more like ethnic. When a particular ethnic group realize that, oh, the Hausas, what is happening is just give cause for concern. The hatred of the Hausa planning community by those who are indigenous people of that terrain is part of what is leading to a reprisal attack. So it's beyond religion. So that's why emphasis is on the reprisal attacks. 2, security as lucrative business. Security has become so lucrative. And a case in point to illustrate this is that some cabals live large on security budget in this nation. Look at how security budget has continued to witness incremental budgetary allocation year in, year out from the time of President Umar Musa Yar'Adua. And the claim is to buy ammunition, to assist them with new and state-of-the-art equipment, to gather intelligence and what have you. Yet we are still where we are. So a lot of people are benefiting from it. And you know, once you discover that there's opportunity to invest money in a particular sector, you realize that people will hover around that place, and they will not want to leave that particular sector. It is the same problem we are facing with the petroleum downstream. Look at the revelation of Dangote and what happened thereafter. Look at some of the things Dangote is coming out to say, press statements, opinions. He made us realize that he wants the Dangote right to succeed, but there are cabals, the deep state, those who don't want it to work, and it's now ready. In fact, I'm seeing Dangote in a different fashion since I've grown up to know who Aliko Dangote is, especially with some of the steps he's taking. Somebody was trying to even blackmail him, paint him as a corrupt person. He responded to say he's going to file a suit of worth 100 billion against the person until that person came back to Trust TV to retract his statement. And you can see that if he didn't take that step to fight the corrupt cabals, to make it for Dangote to succeed will be very difficult. Now, gradually, we are witnessing the reduction in the price of PMS. So, and he has promised that it's going to come down again. But if Dangote is not taking that bold step, we probably today will still be buying PMS more than 1,000 naira. We probably today, during the festive period, we'll still be witnessing long queues. And you know, many of the terrible things that may happen as a result of such long queues, Inferno, the police station may got fire, and so many unfortunate events had happened in the past. Breaking of pipelines, damaging, vandalization of pipelines, and things, loss of lives, properties. So it's
time is up, 5 minutes extra.
So you need to see his efforts as trying to address some of these dangers. The last non-causes of insecurity is unbridled urge to gain political power and control. Anytime you discuss the issue of Boko Haram, the historical emergence of Boko Haram, their antecedents, you remember that Muhammad Yusuf, who is who's the acclaimed leader of Boko Haram, there's always a mention that the government of the time had the way he patronized the governor of Borno at the time, had the way he patronized these people to assist him to gain power. That was when what has been agreed upon, what the governor promised them is not coming forth, is what led to why they had to start attacking people, causing mayhem. So, so these are some of the common non-Islamic causes that have nothing to do with Islam and the whole issue. Now, our advice on the way out is that as Muslims, we need to remember that life is very precious. We need to remember that life is very precious.
So,
Life does not take it so lightly. So our advice is that we need as much as possible to have. I'm concluding. Our advice is that number one, we need to have a very good orientation about what Islam is, and we should never in any way, in any fashion, aid anything having to do with insurgency, having to do with insecurity. Of course, if it is about the security tips, we already know that the security agencies from time to time are giving us the tips. We should also endeavor to assist those who need information. In the community we have, in our every community, there's in Nigeria, there's always a community association where we live. We should work in hand with the police and offer them useful advice in our efforts to also support the government's efforts to fight insurgency and insecurity in Nigeria. But because it's not only government alone cannot do it, it is now clear to us that government alone cannot do it. But about the consequence in the sight of Allah, we need to also be very, very careful and ensure that we are not in the list of Allah among those people who are mufsidun, those who perpetrate evils, are not have facade in our record in the sight of Allah. So this, because our time is fast spent, these are some of the very little things that I plan to share with you, brothers and sisters, in this edition. And I hope that, inshallah, when next we have the opportunity, we would also have reason to also benefit ourselves about Islam, that is our religion. Jazakumullah khairan for your attention. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. جزاكم الله خيرا. جزاكم الله خيرا. جزاكم الله خيرا. In fact, first of all, I apologize for joining a bit behind the second time, but I was able to meet up with a lot of value because of the lecture by our chief imam, Imam Idris, Imam Baisa Idris Ibrahim Alao, Onoba She Aleku Imam Idrisa, Onoba Aleku Nanakoye. Now, so before we move on to the next thing, which is to take questions and to do this. I would like to do a quick recap of the same time where I was able to get from the delivery. So you pointed us to the fact that even in Islam, Allah told us that if you take a soul, it's like taking the soul of a nation, and if you save the soul, it's like saving the soul of a nation. And Islam usually compare uh, training a woman or training or educating a woman as to educating the whole nation, and showing that the scale of what is happening to the person, an individual, is not limited to that person. It's something that covers, that's going to affect a whole lot of people, which translates or which sends us to the fact that, or which will lead us to the fact that Islam is a religion that preserves life, that like its whole essence itself is to preserve life and to make sure that humanity gets what is best. So I also got from the lecture that you mentioned how information and knowledge is really important for everybody as Muslims, for us to have the right kind of information to be able to aid in any form of anti-insurgency or anti-oppression and stuff like that. So you also mentioned that we should try as much as we can to work with community and to work with security agencies to share information and also making references from the Sharia and also making mention of the fact that Islam itself will never encourage things like Boko Haram or insurgency. So people should not be led in any way to believe that the wrong version of Islam that we encourages in part or in full insurgency, oppression, or mass murder, genocide, or things like that. So that in fact, Islam is in the real form of Islam, it's categorically against mass murdering or genocide or stuff like that. So we really appreciate our lecturer. There are so many things, there are so many bullets I have here in my notes that it should just be like maybe a lecture or whatever, which I will not actually want to do. I just want to say a big example of iron to our lecturer for giving us a very wonderful lecture for the final version of the our monthly project and finance. If anyone wants to have questions, I personally have questions too. So right at this moment, I would like us to take questions from individuals. You can also if you want to voice your questions, you can raise up your hand so that I'll take the numbers. And if you like, you can drop your questions in the chat box. I'll read out the questions. I'll read out all the questions now. So I'm not saying hands raised. So I would like to go ahead with my own question. Imam, are you with me? Can you hear me? Yeah, Imam. Hello? Hello,
Yes,
you
I
are
can
muted.
hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, sir. So my own question. So maybe while I'm asking my questions, others will come up with their questions. So
Okay.
it was discovered that the airstrike by the United States, as they claim to help Nigeria to combat insurgency, left some unwanted effects. One of which is that maybe some fragments from the missiles. I think some Tomahawk missiles were launched from the Gulf of Guinea to Sokoto, where the supposed insurgents were gathering. So we learned that some of these fragments, in fact, the federal government confirmed this news that some of these fragments from the missiles landed in Kwara State to be precise, and it caused injuries to a lot of people and destroyed properties. So people are beginning to ask questions: why is a missile fragment that are meant to land, in Sokoto are being found in places like Ofa, which is like hundreds of kilometers away from the intended target? What could be some of the indications or indices that we could deduct from this? And people are asking questions according and even with Islamic perspective as well. Should Nigeria, because it is said that the US is currently working in conjunction with AFRICOM and also with Nigerian government. Should they at this point be welcomed? Should the US be allowed to operate or to invade Nigeria as they have started doing already? So these questions are some of the questions I would like you to give us your opinion about. And so my second question basically is, as Muslims, what are some of the things? I know you've mentioned some of those things in your lecture, but I just want a brief of some of the things you feel as Muslims our stand should be, or our should I say our decision should be when it comes to maybe supporting this move by the US and the Nigerian government, maybe probably starting going against it. No,
Thank you very much. Jazakumullah khairan. Uh, um, if you listen very well, but you said you came while the program was on. So while the lecture was on, so I'm not sure. Maybe you can remember the time or at what particular time I had to just mention the US airstrikes. So I mentioned it while trying to portray our situation or the situation of our security in the country presently. I didn't go into detail to discuss whether collaborating with the US is the best for us or not. Personally, I will not support such collaboration. We have started seeing some of the demerits of such Nigeria-US security collaboration. You want to strike insurgents uh, at a place in Sokoto. How come it's now getting to offer? So the reason why I'm saying as a Muslim we need to take caution, and personally I will not support such collaboration. That's just it. Because before our government resolved to collaborate with US, what was the first thing we all heard from the US government? US was saying it wanted to re-establish US military base in Nigeria. So it was because the public opinion favored Nigeria. Developed nations are also opposed to it. Then another means was devised. That's let's collaborate together. We can offer you support. The US is ready to offer support, and we have seen the kind of support they want to offer us now. So I think as we proceed into this, because this is far beyond what individuals or a section of society can decide. But as we proceed in this, I think civil society organizations, including Muslim human rights groups like Murik and other groups, we should be voicing out the Muslims' position on such issue. And we should have reason to always review events as they occur. And now the government should be made to realize the error committed by the US government in their first attempt at trying to attack the insurgents. So we cannot afford to have this happening all the time. Loss of life, loss of property. When it is not even about the insurgents now, it's even going outside. So it really calls for review so that we don't end up killing our own people under the guise of trying to fight insurgents. So I do not see the US as a sincere partner. There's a Chatham House paper way back more than 10 years ago that I read that when US want to achieve something, it will fight using two things: economic and security interests. If they want to the paper was discussing about the rationale for US democracy promotion. When US is clamoring that nations should adopt democracy, it's either to achieve security interest or economic interest. Look at what happened in Libya. That was clearly issue of economic interest. What happened in Iraq was clearly of issue of security interest. In Nigeria case, is economic interest, because US interest in Nigeria has grown more than what you can imagine since the commencement of operation in Dangote refinery, because that Dangote refinery alone has given Nigeria very good image, good economic outlook globally. So there's someone like me with what I've read about US democracy promotion. When US is saying they want to offer you 48, when US is saying they want to come and assist you in security, in your security setup, all these things for one interest or not. It's usually an unstated objective when the West are saying they want to come and offer you anything. Even in the academics, many grants, there are unstated objectives behind them. If care is not taken, you get to a point where they will tell you to be promoting gay in the scholarship and you'll be getting money. So we need to do a holistic review. At the level of government, our government must review. Even individually, we need to review so that we are careful of the kind of things we pass down to younger generation. If we discover that this is not a good collaboration, all imams should sensitize our congregation and let them realize that this is an enemy coming in the in the garb of a friend. And since we do not have power to stop them or to stop the collaboration because we are not in government, we are not the one at the end of affair, then we have prayers. Then we should call on Allah to come to our aid. So that will be my response to the question. Thank you very much.
No, there's nothing no high answer. So I'm trying to get so somebody say, oh, Chef Soil said I want to say I'm paid as a lecturer for the delivery of the topic. My question is that there are a lot of information or out of context interpretation of our deen, and as Muslims, I believe we also have our part in this by ensuring we ourselves are knowledgeable about our deen as well as implement it and share it within any circle we find ourselves. My submission is that our lecturer can kindly give submission on this. Thank you. I don't know if you get the question, sir. I don't know. I don't know if you got the question, the what I just read. I don't know if you get it, sir. Should I read it again? Is in the chat? Is in the chat box? Now, Imam, you are muted. Though. Okay, you just joined back. Did you hear the question I read out, or I should read it again? Now, yeah, Imam, you are muted.
Please read it again. I just joined. I didn't know something went wrong and
Okay,
it's
the
locked me out.
question from Malam Tohir is that the deen, okay, there are a lot of misinterpretation and out of context interpretation of our deen, and as Muslims, he believes he believes that we also should be part of, should do our part in ensuring that we ourselves are knowledgeable about our things and also
Yes,
how to implement it and share it within our circle we find ourselves.
yes.
My submission is that our lecturer can kindly give submission on this. Thank you. I don't know if you understand that.
So the questioner is expecting me to give submission on what?
On I think probably gaining seeking for the right knowledge on how to implement it by Muslims. So I think that was
Thank
the
you. Okay. It's a long journey. To be frank with you, it's a long journey to achieve that. See, we just have to cultivate the habit of learning about our deen and fight ignorance, and that will just be part of our life. It's just part of our life, our daily conduct. Because you see, if you look at social media today, many of our imams or many of our scholars, those who claim to be scholars, especially of Yoruba extraction, look at the many things, many fuhush vain talk coming out from them. Fuhush al kalam coming from many of them on social media. So you have to be very selective. You need to be very selective as to those you listen to. And no matter how you listen to scholars too, you get to a point where you see something that appears to be controversial. Professor so is saying something, Dr. So is saying something, Sheikh so is saying something, and what they are saying is different. knowledge, while at the same time you should also spare time to attend Islamic gathering when you are sure of the quality of Islamic message you will learn from the would-be scholars. Uh, Allah says in the Quran that إِن يَعْلَمِ اللَّهُ مَا فِي قُلُوبِكُمْ خَيْرًا يُؤْتِكُمْ إِن يَعْلَمِ اللَّهُ مَا فِي قُلُوبِكُمْ يُؤْتِكُمْ خَيْرًا. If Allah knows, of course the verse continues, but I had to cut it short to the place where I need. If Allah knows you are truly sincere, He will guide you, He will give you no a light that guides you. Now, and that light will lead you to guidance, hidayah of Allah. Then, because I'm on the platform of the University of London Muslim Graduates Association, and I know some of my contemporaries have, if I don't know any other person, I met Malam Hafiz Akinde in university, and I'm sure myself and Malam Fuad, we are contemporaries. He was my senior for 2 or 3 years. Let's use the University of London, for example. At the level of MSSN, there are many of our brothers back then who tagged any brothers or sisters who seem to be discussing something having to do with politics, governance, as if they are equal. They stereotype them, they label them, as if that part of our life is not discussed by Islam. So anything you want to discuss governance, politics, they say, no, 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 no. These are Ikhwan people, they are power hungry, they are. How can you be a Muslim and you do not have interest about who is to lead you? For instance, so you leave the power block or the government position for those who are not of your religious extraction. What happened? So when they get there, they also do things to in their favor. Nobody. So it's another matter that people who are there, they may not be conscious Muslims as you want. Yes, because that is the nature of human being. If Allah make all of us to be rich, to be wealthy, many of us will not observe our salah regularly again. Many of us will misbehave. That is human nature. So you need to understand this along with the kind of life they are living, that position is such that even if they are able to observe daily prayers, we will still say to them, well done. We'll still be commending them. I'll be praying for them that our prayer can assist them to turn better, to become better. Then we'll give them quality advice. Then we don't compound their problem. Somebody who is working, who is earning, why would you have reason to go and meet politicians for anything you want to do to assist you when you know quite okay that you are okay, you can make things happen at your end without having to go and be a burden on the politician? But those who are working, those who are not everybody, they are going taking their needs before a politician, and we are saying we don't want them to be corrupt. I'm saying this because those moments that a politician ever had any reason to extend any kind gesture to me was when I was a student, and throughout the world is when throughout the world it is globally recognized that students are in the category of people who are in need of help. Since I've been working, I have not met any politician to do anything for me. But when I was a student, because I need to face my studies and I need support, that's the only instance. So I'm saying this because we should also understand our own problem. So the point I'm trying to make is from this is that our brothers then they tag some people as Ikhwani. They say you cannot have more than one Amir in the university, when in fact the difference between MSSN Amir, NIMET Amir, NUESA Amir, for instance, you say no, it can be only one Amir. Other faculties will coordinate. Okay, no problem. It's a good. Now in Nigeria, how many presidents do we have in Nigeria? There are many presidents. You cannot count the number of presidents in Nigeria. There's presidents. I'm from Ogbomoso Parapọ̀ worldwide. Presidents náà lòun náà. Tinubu is president. Senate. The leader of the president is called president. So is there any confusion? So why we may not have to, why there's a sense in saying, okay, let's adopt another term for all those who are community faculty, we should not make an issue out of it, because so that we can have unity. I'm just using some of these things as an example. Hello, I'm just using some of this as an example so that we can always give space for unity, even if we hold different views, and we can always remain in the fold of Islam. So let's continue to learn. So many of the ignorance that is with us, it will leave us with knowledge gradually. But don't let us fight over things beyond normal. So that the day you know that what somebody is doing is the truth, your regret will not be too much. Somebody some years ago used to oppose anything politics. He said that Muslims, we don't need to be there, we don't need to even vote, we don't need to do anything, no problem. And one day we were discussing again. He's a professional colleague. And I discovered that he said, his view has changed. I said, hey, what made it change? He said, he realized now that if you leave that platform, that position of authority for those who are not Muslims, they are going to be unjust to us. I said, okay, you can now see now, using that as an example. What is just realizing? I've realized it more than 10, 15 years ago. Courtesy of the scholars that I was benefiting from their knowledge, and courtesy of my own personal efforts at unveiling the truth. So,
Now, so in the absence of questions or more contributions, we will bring the program to a close gradually. I want to say Jazakallah khairan to you again, sir. And I also want to give some excerpts from what is said in asking our questions. So one of the most important key takeaways I have is that as Muslims we learn to pray. Nothing is beyond prayer. We should learn to pray to Allah. We need to pray for Nigeria. Honestly, I would not say, I will not put it on my status right now, like pray for Nigeria. So we need to learn to pray. And we need our imams to play a key role in disseminating information like this in our mosques, in our communities, to carry people along, to let people know what their roles are and what right information they need to have. Also, we need to as Muslims, we need to act as a unit. We need to try to act as a unit because these people always depend on our decision, how easily divisible we can be sometimes. So when our Imam was talking right now, he was mentioning when these things happen, even right from way back when we were in school. So we need to try as much as possible to live above all that and to come together as a community. Also, also we need to be involved. We need to participate in politics, no matter how Like I always say, that all these things happening around us, it's not as if there's nothing we can do. There is something as a person, as a unit, as a citizen of Nigeria. Either you're living in Nigeria or you're already outside the country. There is a role you must play. You just need to know what that role is, and you need to just play that role. So we need to get involved. If you want to get into politics, get into politics. If you need to call people together, come together as a community to make certain statements, to make certain things known. We need to just act. Everybody has something they need to do. So these are some of the most important key takeaways I have made in the course of lecture answering questions. So in the absence of more questions, I will move to the next on the agenda, which is to give us information and as we gradually bring the program to a close. So, University of Learning Muslim Graduates, our monthly lecture will be coming up in January again, inshallah. And we need to bring in more people to attend this program for Allah's sake. Our attendance today is surprisingly a bit low. I think we're just about 13 or about 14 attendees. At some point, it was around 15, 16. I think we also had network issues and stuff like that. So please, let's always spread the word. Whenever the date is approaching, so next one will one will be coming up, I think, around 20. Uh, so next one will be coming up in January. So let's keep an eye out for that, and let's always spread the word. Some of us are attending this thing without calling others to the program. So please let's try to inform others. So the next one, inshallah, will be coming up on the 31st. If I'm right, yes, on the 31st of on the 25th. Sorry, 25th. It's going to be 25th of January, inshallah. So please, let's always keep an eye out for this program and always spread the word, inform others, invite others, share the meeting link because you can see the benefits we all had from this. I really we all had a lot of value to take away from this particular lecture. I personally, I took away a lot of value. I took away information I could use to like talk to other people, like share information and make people more enlightened, especially about Islam, about what about Islamic perspective on everything that's going on the insurgency and everything, and the right approach that should have been taken